Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and salam sejahtera. So today in this video, we will talking about how to prepare salt. So before we go further, let's recall what is the definition of salt. Okay, salt is ionic compound formed when the hydrogen ion from an acid is replaced by the metal ion or ammonium ion. So based on this statement, it means that we need acid first before we have the salt. So we need the acid before we have the salt. Why? Because the salt is formed when the hydrogen ion itself, and that hydrogen ion is from the acid. So if we don't have acid, so we don't have hydrogen ion. When we don't have the hydrogen ion to be replaced by the metal ion, so we don't have salt. Okay, so let's look at to the example here. Example of salt here, we have sodium chloride, calcium chloride, aluminum chloride, and zinc chloride. What is their similarities? The similarity is all of them contain chloride ion, meaning that they are come from the same source, from the same acid. The acid that they come from contain chloride ion. So what is the acid? So the acid is hydrochloric acid. Okay, so look at to the definition. Definition said that ionic compound formed when hydrogen ion, this is our hydrogen ion, from an acid replaced by the metal ion. So in the first example, the metal ion is sodium. Okay, what happened? So sodium, we're going to replace the position of hydrogen in the acid. So what we get the first salt, which is sodium chloride. Okay, so how to write this formula? You need to recall the subtopic writing chemical formula and equation. So we got sodium chloride because sodium ion is Na+, chloride ion is Cl negative. You do the cross method, you get NaCl. Okay. Second example, what happened when the metal ion is calcium ion? So calcium ion, we're going to replace the hydrogen ion from the acid. So what we get the salt named as calcium chloride, CaCl2. And for the aluminium chloride, okay, aluminium chloride is also a salt. This salt formed when the hydrogen ion from the hydrochloric acid replaced by the metal ion, which is the aluminium ion. So we can get aluminium chloride. Okay. So same goes to the nitrate salt. So we have the example here: magnesium nitrate, silver nitrate, iron to nitrate, copper to nitrate. Why this compound is known as the salt? Because it is formed when the hydrogen ion from the nitric acid replaced by the metal ion. The metal ion here is magnesium. So magnesium replaced the hydrogen ion. So we got magnesium nitrate, MgNO3. This is how we form the salt. Okay, and look at the last group of salt. We have silver sulfate, lead sulfate, gold sulfate, and aluminium sulfate. So what is the idea here? Meaning that this salt is come from the acid that contains sulfate ion. What is the acid? The acid is sulfuric acid. So how silver sulfate is formed? Silver sulfate is formed when the hydrogen ion from the sulfuric acid replaced by silver ion, which is the metal ion here is silver ion. Okay, so we got silver sulfate. Okay, watch out how you write the formula. Lead sulfate, PbSO4, gold sulfate, Au2SO4, aluminium sulfate is Al2 bracket SO4 bracket 3. Okay, this is how we form the salt. Okay, so based on this idea, what we can say, meaning that the salt name from the acid that they come from: chloride salt because it's come from hydrochloric acid, nitrate salt because it's come from nitric acid, sulfate salt because it's come from sulfuric acid. So meaning that salt is come from the acid. That's the last conclusion. Okay, moving on, we have two types of salt, which is it can be classified into soluble salt and insoluble salt. We're going to focus on the carbonate salt, chloride salt, sulfate salt, and nitrate salt. Carbonate salt meaning that this salt is come from acid known as, yes, carbonic acid. Chloride salt meaning that this salt is come from the acid known as, yes, hydrochloric acid. Sulfate salt is come from acid known as, yeah, very good, sulfuric acid. And nitrate salt is come from the acid known as, yes, nitric acid. Okay, so this salt we can classify into two, either soluble salt or insoluble salt. So this table is really important and you must memorize, okay, because this is going to make you more easy to prepare the salt. It's like you want to prepare, let's say you want to cook something, you nak masak cake. So kalau you tak kenal itu adalah cake, you akan sediakan ingredient yang salah. Okay, let's say you tengok ada satu chocolate cake on your table dekat dapur kan, dekat rumah you, dekat kitchen, chocolate cake. If you don't know that is the chocolate cake, so kalau orang tanya how to prepare benda ni kan, tapi tak tahu benda tu adalah cake, so you akan bagi tahu the ingredient yang salah lah. Let's say you kata okay, kita ambil let's say you kata ambil Milo, lepas tu campur dengan ikan, macam tu lah maksudnya, blend lepas tu jadi. So why important untuk kita kenal, because benda tu, bila kita kenal benda tu baru kita tahu how to prepare. Same goes to our salt. If you cannot recognize which one is soluble salt, which one is insoluble salt, you akan ada masalah untuk buat suggestion on how to prepare this salt. Okay, so make sure you really memorize and you can identify well who is the soluble salt, who is insoluble salt. For the carbonate salt, okay, the soluble salt are only three, which is sodium carbonate, potassium carbonate, and ammonium carbonate. The rest are all insoluble, meaning that you hafal yang soluble tiga ni, selain daripada tu untuk carbonate, insoluble. For chloride salt, most of the chloride salt are soluble, okay, except for the three, which is lead to chloride, silver chloride, and mercury chloride. Okay, these three insoluble. The rest chloride salt are soluble, like magnesium chloride, zinc chloride, and so on. Okay, moving on to the sulfate salt. For the sulfate salt, all sulfate salt are soluble, meaning that most of the sulfate salt are soluble except three also, which is lead to sulfate, calcium sulfate, and barium sulfate. Okay, so if your teacher say that aluminium sulfate, so you have to say that aluminium sulfate is soluble salt. Okay, and then for the nitrate, all the nitrate salt are soluble, meaning that no ataupun none insoluble. All nitrate salt, sodium nitrate, magnesium nitrate, lead to nitrate, calcium nitrate, all are soluble salt. Okay, so based on this table, we can have one conclusion, which is all ammonium, sodium, and potassium salt are soluble. What does it mean? Meaning that sodium carbonate, potassium carbonate, ammonium carbonate, yes, soluble. Sodium chloride, potassium chloride, ammonium chloride, also soluble. Same goes to the ammonium sulfate, sodium sulfate, potassium sulfate, ammonium nitrate, sodium nitrate, and potassium nitrate. So what we can say, it means that all sodium, ammonium, and potassium salt are soluble salt. Tak kisahlah dia belakang dia carbonate ke, chloride ke, sulfate ke, nitrate ke, kalau depan dia ammonium, sodium, and potassium, confirm they are soluble. Okay, so you need to have your own mnemonic to memorize this table. Okay, you can have your own lyric and so on, so that you can memorize it very well. Okay, for me, I have one suggestion for you. Okay, I use For the ammonium, sodium and potassium, I use anak. This one I use anak. A for the ammonium, so I pakai anak. Anak. Kau. Ni kau lah. Kau. And this one cik. Kau. This one pah. This one suka. PCB, not nitrate. Okay, but you need to know the table. Okay, so anak, kau, cik pah suka PCB, not nitrate. This is my suggestion. You can have your own, so you can create by your own. So I will connect them like I'm drawing a test tube. This is one test tube. This is my second test tube. So that I know where is the position. So anak, kau, cik pah suka PCB, not nitrate. This is my suggestion, so you can have your own. Okay, after you memorize and you can recognize very well either the salt is soluble salt and insoluble salt, now let's prepare them. Okay, so salt, we have two types of salt, soluble salt and also insoluble salt. Tak kenal, so maka you akan susah untuk prepare. Be careful, okay? Salt is very easy when you can identify or you can recognize either soluble or insoluble. So dia akan jadi sangat susah kalau you tak kenal. So mudahkan diri you dengan memastikan you betul-betul ingat dan faham dan kenal dan boleh membezakan di antara soluble salt and insoluble salt. After you recognize soluble or insoluble, for the soluble salt, we have two groups. It's divided into two groups. For the ammonium, sodium and potassium salt. Okay, ammonium, sodium and potassium salt. How to prepare? We're going to use the neutralization reaction, which is the reaction between acid and alkali. Whereas for the soluble salt, other than ammonium, sodium and potassium salt, we have three options: either acid and metal oxide, or acid and metal carbonate. So you kena kenal lah dia tu adalah ammonium, sodium or potassium ataupun selain daripada tiga ni. For me, so I lebih selesa untuk mention anak ammonium, and A for sodium, K for potassium. So anak salt, I'm going to use acid and alkali. Other than anak salt, I'm going to use three method. Okay, where for the insoluble salt, we only have one method, is known as double decomposition. Okay, and we will look further after this. Okay, so the idea here is when we know that we have the soluble salt, so you have to bear in your mind all soluble salt, not all the salt, all soluble. We are talking about soluble salt. All soluble salt could be prepared through reaction of acid. Okay, and you already learned about reaction of acid under subtopic chemical properties of acid before this. Okay, so for the reaction of acid is to prepare soluble salt only. Okay, not for the insoluble salt. Insoluble salt, we're going to use the other method. For the soluble salt, we're going to use the reaction of acid. How many reaction? We have 4. Like what we discussed just now, we have 4. Okay, even though 4, tapi kita tak boleh pakai semua keempat-empat tu. Kita kena decide. Decide macam mana. If you want to prepare soluble salt, and this soluble salt jenis, in textbook use asap, ammonium, sodium and potassium. I pakai anak. It's up to you. Some people use PAS, potassium, ammonium, sodium, or SPA, sodium, potassium, ammonium. You can choose which one you prefer. For me, I'm more prefer to use anak. Okay, for the anak, ammonium, sodium and potassium. For this kind of salt, so we only have one method. What is the method? We only have one chemical reaction, which is the reaction between acid and alkali. For the anak, let's say my salt is sodium chloride. Okay, So I give you the salt is sodium chloride, and then when I check, sodium chloride is from the anak punya gang because there's sodium. So I have to use the reaction between acid and alkali. Itu I kena ingat lah. So you kena hafal, when you have the acid, you have the alkali, what will be the product? The product is supposed to be salt and water. Now we want to prepare sodium chloride. This is what I give to you. So how can we know what is the acid that we're going to use? We already know just now that when we are talking about soluble salt, we must have the acid. And the salt is come from the acid. When the salt is known as sodium chloride, meaning that in the acid also must have chloride ion. So what is the acid? Can you guess? Yes, the acid is hydrochloric acid, HCl. Okay, so meaning that you already know the acid. Now, what is the alkali? Okay, if you look at to the formula of the salt, in the formula of the salt contain sodium. So bila dekat produk dia ada sodium, mestilah dekat reactant dia pun kena ada sodium, kan? Like you mewarisi baka ibu dan ayah. Kalau ada ayah sahaja without mother, tak ada you. Okay, so maybe your eyes follow your mother, your ears follow your father, macam tu lah. So sodium chloride ni macam anak lah. So mana datang baka ni datang daripada ibu dan ayah dia. So kita dah jumpa dah chloride sebagai satu mak ke bapak dia. So kita nak cari satu lagi pasangan dia. So the other one mesti contain sodium, because produk dia ada sodium. Now, you have to know sodium, bila kita nak jadikan sodium itu sebagai alkali. How? So, you have to know alkali is, what is alkali? Ini you kena kenal, you recall semula topik under subtopic acid and bases. So, I'll give you straight away, alkali is sodium hydroxide. Dia adalah metal oxide. Alkali is also a base. Base is metal oxide or metal hydroxide. So, we do step by step. So we write the salt, we find the acid, we complete with the alkali, and then look at to the equation. When we have acid, when we have the alkali, we must have salt and water. So just complete the equation by put H2O here. Okay, and then the next step is you have to make sure your equation, your chemical equation is balanced. And for this one, alhamdulillah, yes, it's already balanced. Okay, so second example, let's say we have potassium nitrate. Why I put potassium nitrate here? Because potassium is from anak punya salt, K. Okay, so dia sesuai lah untuk disediakan menggunakan tindak balas di antara acid and alkali. So potassium nitrate is our salt. Okay, is our salt, number one. So from this formula of the salt, so when we check, it's contain nitrate ion. So straight away we will know the acid for this salt. Acid apa yang sesuai untuk hasilkan salt ini? Bila nampak nitrate, okay, check semula acid apa. So the acid is, yes, nitric acid. So write the formula of nitric acid. Now you dah jumpa dah satu baka kepada anak dia. Okay, so you nak cari satu lagi. Siapa yang kita tak pakai lagi? Yang kita tak pakai lagi adalah potassium. You write down K. Now you have to turn potassium into alkali. So potassium hydroxide. So acid and alkali, what we got? We got salt and water. And make it balance. Okay, this is the first example. So it's very easy, but you must have the knowledge from our previous videos, from our previous subtopic and topic, to make sure you can write this equation very well. Okay, so kalau you tak boleh tulis equation ni, maknanya you ada problem dengan kita punya previous lesson. Okay, you can check the videos after this to enhance your knowledge. Okay, now moving on, we settle preparation of soluble salt jenis anak. Now selain daripada anak, other than anak. Okay, how can we prepare other than anak? Okay, let's say I give you here zinc sulfate. Zinc sulfate is a soluble salt. Macam mana kita tahu? Because we already memorized this table. Because untuk sulfate, insoluble-nya hanyalah lead, calcium and barium. So zinc tak termasuk. So zinc dekat mana? Zinc dekat bahagian soluble salt. What happen kalau kita tak ingat? Kalau you tak ingat, memang you tak boleh tulis ataupun suggest the equation. So zinc sulfate, meaning that the acid here is sulfuric acid, H2SO4. This is the acid based on the salt. And then kita ada satu lagi yang kita tak pakai, which is zinc. Now you need to turn zinc into base. What is base? Base can be metal oxide or metal hydroxide. So zinc is the metal. You just combine dengan oxide, dapatlah base, zinc oxide. You tak nak zinc oxide, you boleh pakai zinc hydroxide. It's also a base. Okay. So you have acid, you have base. Now you dah hafal dah. Kalau acid jumpa base, keluar salt and water. So you write down the salt already. So you just complete the equation plus H2O. Okay. And then you check, is it balanced or not? The answer is yes, it's already balanced. Okay, second example, I give to you magnesium nitrate. I want to prepare magnesium nitrate. Okay, magnesium nitrate is a soluble salt other than anak. So, it contain nitrate, meaning that the acid here is nitric acid. Okay, and then we have another, daripada anak dia tu, satu lagi yang kita tak pakai iaitu magnesium. Okay, now you have to know magnesium nak jadi base sama ada oxide atau hydroxide. So dua-dua boleh. Tapi oxide lagi senang lah, sebab kalau hydroxide you kena check the formula, takut salah buat So acid and base, you got salt and water. Check, is it balanced or not? Okay, it's not balanced yet. So make it balance. We have to nitrate here, put 2 here. Okay, so this is the second chemical equation to prepare the salt. Acid and base. You got salt and water. Next, to prepare soluble salt other than anak, we also can use the reaction between acid and reactive metal. Let's say we want to prepare magnesium chloride. Okay, this is a soluble salt. So contain chloride ion. So the acid supposed to be hydrochloric acid. And another substance yang kita tak pakai lagi adalah kita dah pakai Mg, adalah magnesium. Is it magnesium is a metal? Yes. So no need to put pasangan dia lah. Macam base tadi kita kena letak oxygen kan, oxide. So this one you just left magnesium alone because it's already a metal. So acid and metal, what we got? We got salt and hydrogen gas, H2. Okay, so this is number 2, number 3, number 4. This is step by step. Okay, make it balance. Okay, put 2 in front. Okay, what is reactive metal? Reactive metal is metal located above hydrogen ion in electrochemical series, but you don't know what is electrochemical series, so you just know benda yang bukan reactive metal lah. Yang not reactive metal, you have to memorize. We have copper, silver, gold. Yang lain you boleh pakai. Okay, except macam tu lah. So this is a very simple. If you don't understand, you can refer to your teacher. What does that mean? Okay, and so if we have a second example, we have copper to sulfate here. I want to prepare copper to sulfate. Okay, this is a soluble salt. So I see sulfate here, I put sulfuric acid. Okay, and then I see copper, I put copper here. So acid and metal, you say acid and metal, you got salt and hydrogen gas. So what happened? This equation is incorrect. Why? Because we have the copper here. Is it reactive metal? The answer is no. So jangan shock sendiri. You have to know reactive metal tu siapa. Jangan ambil copper, silver, gold. So what I want to say here is you cannot use the reaction between acid and copper to prepare copper to sulfate. is not allowed. Tak jadi. Okay, and then reaction number 4, we also can prepare our soluble salt other than anak by using the reaction between acid and metal carbonate. Let's say I want to prepare iron to chloride. So, I use hydrochloric acid. Kita dah pakai Cl. Another one yang kita tak guna lagi adalah Fe. So, how to get iron to carbonate? Iron is a metal. You just combine the iron with the carbonate. Carbonate is CO3 to negative. So, you got the formula FeCO3. This is the metal carbonate. So, acid and metal carbonate, what we're going to get, okay, so we will get salt, water, and carbon dioxide. And please make sure it is balanced. So, to make it balanced, you can put 2 in front. Second one, I have copper to sulfate. Just now, we cannot prepare copper to sulfate by using reaction acid and metal. So, can we prepare using acid and metal carbonate? The answer is yes. Because it contains sulfate, so the most suitable acid is sulfuric acid. So, what else yang kita tak pakai lagi? Dia ada Cu, so we put Cu here. So, because this is under metal carbonate, so you combine copper and carbonate, so you get CuCO3. Acid and metal carbonate. So, what will be the product? Salt, water, and carbon dioxide. Okay. So, as a conclusion, what we can say here is, to prepare soluble salt, you need to know it is soluble or not. Pastikan dulu betul tak dia soluble. Kalau dia soluble, dia boleh pecah kepada 2. Kalau anak, only pakai acid and alkali. Kalau other than anak, you ada 3 option. Sama ada acid and base, acid dengan metal, or acid dengan metal carbonate. But be careful with the reaction acid dengan metal sebab ada setengah metal yang tak sesuai, which is copper, silver, and gold. So, do your practice to write the chemical equation for the salt. Is really important for KSSM untuk SPM level. Okay. Now, let's look at your understanding. Let's check your understanding. Okay, suggest how to prepare the salt by writing a balanced chemical equation. So, I give to you the salt. So, what you're going to do when you get the salt, you have to do the analysis. You have to analyze first. What is the analysis? First, you need to check either the salt is soluble or insoluble. So, kalau dia soluble pula, you kena check dia anak ke bukan anak. Kalau dia anak, ada satu je reaction, which is, the reaction is acid and alkali. Tapi kalau dia bukan anak, you ada 3 option. Okay, let's look at to the first one, sodium nitrate. Who is sodium nitrate? Sodium nitrate, sodium. Bila sebut sodium, memang anak salt memang all soluble. So, dia adalah sejenis soluble salt. You have to analyze. Soluble salt, lepas tu you check semula. Soluble salt ni ada 2. Anak ke bukan anak? So, this is anak. When anak, you only have 1 option, which is acid and alkali. So, you write down. Write the salt first. The salt is NaNO3. This is the first one. So, where is come from? It's come from the acid. What is the most suitable acid? Acid kita adalah the nitric acid. Very good. HNO3. So, kita dah pakai nitrate. Apa yang kita tak apply lagi? Kita ada satu lagi iaitu sodium. So, write down the sodium. Just now we said that this reaction mesti acid dan alkali. So, nitric acid, yes, it's already an acid. Sodium, is it an alkali? Not yet. You kena tukar dia menjadi formula alkali. So, you put OH here. So, acid and alkali, what we'll get? You will get salt and water. So, that's why I said you have to know the equation. Kalau ini jumpa ini, apa produk dia? Okay. So, how many chemical equation that we can suggest for preparation of sodium nitrate? The answer is only 1. Because sodium nitrate is soluble salt jenis anak. How about magnesium sulfate? Okay. Write down, do your analysis first. Magnesium sulfate is also a type of soluble salt, tapi non-anak, bukan anak. So bila bukan anak, we have three option: acid and base, acid and metal, or acid and metal carbonate. So write down the formula of the salt first. Our salt is magnesium sulfate. So what is the acid? It's come from sulfuric acid. Okay. So sulfuric acid plus with another one Mg. Let's say I nak suggest untuk acid and base. So how can I turn magnesium into base? Base is either metal oxide or metal hydroxide. So kalau you nak pakai magnesium oxide is MgO. Kalau you nak pakai magnesium hydroxide, Mg bracket OH bracket 2. So acid and base, the product is salt and water. Very good. You just complete the equation. So that is the first one. Do we have another chemical equation? The answer is yes, you can suggest another one. We also want to prepare magnesium sulfate. Okay, so for sure, because salt come from the acid, so for sure, the acid is sulfuric acid. Okay, so what else yang kita pakai lagi is magnesium. Okay, this time we want to suggest acid and metal. Is it magnesium is a metal? Yeah, so no need to put the partner for the magnesium. You just left alone, magnesium. So sulfuric acid plus the magnesium, the products will be salt and, you have to know, salt and hydrogen gas, H2. So make sure it's balanced. Yes, it's already balanced. Do we have another suggestion? Yes. So what else? To prepare magnesium sulfate, we still must use the same type of acid, which is sulfuric acid. We still need magnesium because magnesium is in the salt contain magnesium, so in the reactant also must contain magnesium. Now this time magnesium kita nak tukar kepada metal carbonate. So what we will do, magnesium combine with the carbonate. So you got MgCO3. So let's recall, when acid and metal carbonate, we got salt, we got carbon dioxide and water. So as a conclusion, we have three possible three possible chemical equation to prepare magnesium sulfate. You can choose either one. But for the sodium nitrate, only one. How about copper to nitrate? Can we have 3 or 2 or 1? So you need to discover about this. Good luck. And check with your teachers how many chemical reaction to prepare copper to nitrate. Okay. So this is what we can do in our lab. Preparation of soluble salt for the anak. For the anak, we must use the reaction between the acid and the alkali. So what we will do, this is known as the titration method. This is titration method. In titration method, we will put certain volume of the alkali, including the phenolphthalein as the indicator. And then we will add drop by drop hydrochloric acid until it reach the end point. End point will occur when the color of the phenolphthalein change from pink to colorless. Okay, when this happen, you need to stop adding the acid and then look at to the volume. Berapa banyak volume acid yang kita pakai untuk neutralizekan potassium hydroxide. Let's say the volume is 25. So you're going to continue. Now, bila you continue without adding the phenolphthalein. Sebab kita nak prepare salt, tadi just nak tahu berapa volume. You dah tahu 25 of VCm cube. You directly add VCm cube, the hydrochloric acid, into the potassium chloride. Okay, so if we have the hydrochloric acid and potassium hydroxide, so our product will be salt and water. Okay, so in our conical flask contains salt and water. But actually, we want to prepare salt only. We don't want water. So what we're going to do, kita nak eliminate the water. Kita akan heat until saturated, sampai dia tepu. When you heat until saturated, the water will going to evaporize. We're going to vaporize. Okay, it will vaporize, and then it's make your salt become saturated. Dia jadi tepu, pekat sangat. And you left for a few minutes. Okay, it's going to turn into crystal. So how you get the crystal? You need to filter by using filter paper and filter funnel. And then you need to rinse with a little distilled water. And after that, you make it dry by put or press between two filter papers. And at the end, you will get the crystal. What is crystal? Dia macam garam dekat dapur lah, dalam bentuk solid. That's how we do. This is for the anak. For the soluble salt other than anak, let's say we want to prepare copper to nitrate. So we know copper to nitrate is a soluble salt. Number one. And then the second idea is we know is non-anak. When it's non-anak, we cannot use acid and alkali, but we can use acid and metal, or maybe acid and metal carbonate, or maybe acid and base. But for this one, because it is copper, so kita ada berapa suggestion? We can use, because it is copper to nitrate, we have copper here, so we can use acid and base, and acid and metal carbonate only. How about acid and metal? For this salt, cannot. Kenapa cannot? Because the metal here must be reactive metal. Kalau kita letak copper, tak boleh lah. Okay, so you have two options. So, we want to prepare copper to nitrate. So, in this situation, you are given nitric acid. Yeah, because it's copper to nitrate. For sure, we must have nitric acid. And you are given with CuO. What is copper to oxide? It is a base. Okay, so if you don't have copper to oxide, you can use, yes, copper to carbonate. So you can choose either one. But for this example, it's given to you copper to oxide. So we cannot use the titration method because titration dia kena melibatkan solution and solution. Kita nak titrate dalam daripada burette. Okay, so ini kena pakai solution and solution. But this one, the base, the metal carbonate and the metal is in solid form. So kita kena guna kaedah lain lah. So we have the acid. Kita masukkan our base using the spatula. Okay, and before that you need to heat or warm the acid first. You can refer from the textbook, the procedure. I just give you the idea. And then you stir, because we put in excess copper to oxide. So we need to filter. And then after we filter, the mixture that come out from the filter is known as the filtrate. This is our filtrate. What is our filtrate? When acid jumpa dengan copper to oxide, we got copper to nitrate, salt and water. Acid and base, salt and water. So our filtrate is actually copper to nitrate and water. But we only want the copper to nitrate. We want to eliminate water. How? Again, we will heat our mixture until saturated. The purpose is to remove water. When you heat until saturated, the water will going to evaporate. Okay, and then the salt will become saturated salt. And this saturated salt, when you left at room condition, is going to turn into salt crystal. And the next step, you have to filter by using filter paper and filter funnel and add a few drops of distilled water. And you can get your salt crystal. How to make it dry? You just press between two filter papers and you will get copper to nitrate crystal. It's like table salt. Dia macam table salt bentuk dia. Cuma the colour is very nice colour. The colour is blue in colour. So you can get the blue salt. Okay. And the last one is also the preparation of soluble salt. But this one, to to purify our soluble salt. What does it mean? Let's say after you dah sediakan your soluble salt, tiba-tiba ada benda asing. Macam you dah buat you punya puding, okay, ataupun you punya agar-agar, tiba-tiba ada semut seekor dalam agar-agar tu. You ada dua option. Sama ada you potong. Kalau you nak potong semut tu kan, you potong. Kalau you potong, you akan terpotong sekali dengan you punya agar-agar. So what you do, you ada second option, you boleh panaskan semula. Yeah, very good. You heat semula, tambah air, panaskan. So that's what we're going to do to our soluble salt yang ada impurities. Okay, we put in the beakers, we add distilled water, kita pun kacau, we stir. Okay, and then after we stir, the impurities akan terpisah sebab soluble salt tu dah dissolve. So we need to filter. Okay, so when we filter, the impurities akan melekat dekat filter paper, and then the filtrate ni adalah mengandungi our soluble salt including the water. Again, kita nak eliminate water, what we do? Yes, we need to heat. Tapi you kena tulis heat until saturated. You cannot say heat only, because kalau heat only nanti you heat sampai kering, nanti dia decompose, tak jadi. You hanya heat sampai dia pekat je, bukan heat sampai kering. Kalau you kata heat, people will going to say you heat sampai dia decompose. So it heat until saturated. When it's saturated, sama macam prosedur tadi, you just left to cool it, and then you filter again, and then you dry. Okay, so that's how we prepare soluble salt. Whatever is the chemical equation to prepare soluble salt, you kena ingat. Singa kelai ke base ke, you kena kenal lah. And then yang paling penting juga adalah you must know, is it the salt is soluble salt or insoluble salt. Okay, for the preparation insoluble salt, I will explain in the next video. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Assalamualaikum and salam.